Star Wars Doctrine podcast, where today we're talking about the crazy and wonderful event that was the Disney investors meeting, which a lot of people watched who weren't investors, but that's because we're all just, emotionally invested in Star Wars. And we're going to be talking about the different episodes, and we put together a several part series where we detail each episode or each creation, each announcement in its own video. So if you only care about one or only want to check out specific ones, go ahead and check those out. Of course, we'll be starting off with this one, A Droid Story, which no one knows anything about. So this is going to be
Highly
a really short
anticipated.
video.
Yeah,
So,
Droid Story was like probably on the bottom of our list of excitement when this was announced, but there's not a whole lot of information to go off, right?
yeah, it was weird. Like, when they said, hey, C3PO and R2D2 are coming back, I was like, yeah, that sounds exciting. They're going to do a new adventure. I was actually pumped until I was putting together this list with you of things to talk about. And I was like, that's the only thing they said is C3PO and R2D2 are coming back. I really can't make that last for much longer than like a minute.
Yeah, basically the only thing we have on it other is that there's going to be an epic journey that's going to
Yes.
introduce us to a new hero,
Hmm.
and though that new hero is going to be guided by the legendary duo R2D2 and C3PO, which I think we can both agree that you can never have too much R2D2 and C3PO because it is a very iconic duo.
Right. I definitely can't dispute that fact at all. And I know, I mean, C3PO was much of the kind of comedy uh, his character in the original trilogy, but he's been a face throughout all of Star Wars, and his banter with R2 is quite legendary. But I was
Yeah, and
thinking it's gonna be interesting because I know when you and I watched Episode 9, we thought that C3PO's evolution as he was handled actually probably was the best in the Rise of Skywalker. So I think there's,
yeah,
the last time we met C3PO, unless you're counting like the holiday special and other projects he's been working on, but I guess on big screen was, I think, a very pleasant experience.
yeah, he they did a good job with making him because he's always kind of that annoying, like kind
Right.
of bugs everyone, but comedy relief. But he had some really good lines in the Rise of Skywalker, so I agree. Very pleased with that. Um, as far as this goes, timeline wise, we don't really know anything. Do you have any guesses or?
That's lame. I was gonna ask you that question. Well, I mean, I know. Okay, I know it's not before Episode 1 or Episode 2 even, because they're not together until Episode 2.
Yeah,
I can't imagine it's a Clone Wars story, so I'm kind of guessing we're moving out of prequel era.
yeah,
But the whole Rebellion era, I mean, Episode 3 and on, they're together from the get go, so that is an option. Do you think it'll be then, or are you thinking kind of post? I don't. My two options are then because that's the period that they seem to be, hitting pretty heavily on actually with their announcements was this time period, and I mean, I think everyone is partial to that time period, whether or not like that's everyone's favorite. Everyone's partial to like that rebellion versus empire, feeling, right? It's the fun. It's where Star Wars was created first of all, but it is like the fun sort of vibe I think, and that's mimicked obviously in the setup for the sequels was that underdog against the big bad guy feeling. So I wouldn't be surprised if it takes place in the original trilogy or well, before the original
yeah,
trilogy,
right
but
after three.
I think it would be a cool way to continue on the kind of world building after Episode 9 because there isn't
Yeah,
really anything else planned for that.
my my initial thought is yes, it would be after episode 9, and that it would be a way
Right.
to kind of fill in like what's going on right now in the galaxy, whether it's just through stories we hear from C3PO and R2. And the reason is because the reason I get that vibe is because it said this duo is going to be guiding this new hero, and so it's like if
Right.
they're very wise at this point, they've been through so much, they can tell this hero all about their past and all the stories. That's why I get the vibe that'll be after 9, and I actually think that would be pretty cool uh,
Right.
way to build on after 9. But I like what you said because there's a big chunk of time between episode 3 and 4 where C3PO's mind was just wiped, and they're going to be
Right.
on Alderaan, and we don't know how much they were together. There's a little bit of appearance of R2 in the Ahsoka novel, and there's not a whole lot though in those 19 years. So
Right.
there's definitely room for it to be during that time period as well, but I kind of think it'll probably be post 9.
I do think like you touched on a good point is Art or C3PO gets his memory wiped. R2 obviously doesn't. That droid never gets his memory wiped. But JW was saying that he's thinking the original trilogy kind of timeline as well, which I just think I don't know. I kind of secretly hope for that timeline just because I love that timeline. I love the feel of the rebellion. But I think the point you brought up about C3PO's memory being wiped is actually kind of important because if R2D2 and C3PO are guiding this new hero, I do think C3PO's memory or his faculties need to be more involved than
Sounds important, right?
right than just like whatever from 5 years of memory is. So I think that for him to really be that leader, it would be better to have it post 9, and then it depending on when R2D2 backs up C3PO's memories. In 9 when C3PO or R2D2 actually restores C3PO's memories, C3PO
Oh
could
yeah,
remember everything.
that
So I
would be
mean that would
cool
even make him
actually.
like a better guide, and that would actually be kind of cool. Like he could tell stories about Anakin. That would actually like really add on to the vibe of bringing us a new hero. And I do like the concept of I don't think we need sequels of the sequels, but I want to know what's Rey doing, what's just kind of the state of the galaxy. Because last time we
Right.
ended a Star Wars series, things went bad like in 5 years. So
Well,
it'd be
and
kind of
and just
interesting,
watching the Lego Holiday Special, although
right?
it's not like everything in it that happened is canon or anything like that, but it did give you a fun look at like, hey, Ray could be trying to trade Finn, and it was
Wait,
just
you don't
fun to
mean
get a
three
little
Obi-Wan
glimpse.
Kenobis existed at the same time? Dang it,
Yeah,
my
and the whole
life.
time trap. Yeah,
Gosh.
for real. Um, so I mean, I think that that would be cool, but we also didn't mention it could possibly take place between 6 and 7. I mean,
True.
that's
That's another.
obviously an option, and there's some time
Ooh,
between that, which would be interesting.
speaking of Legos, do you remember A Droid Tales? It's
Yeah,
C3PO gets his memory back, surprisingly enough, after the events of Episode 6, because R2D2 had him all along, crazily
right.
enough. I wonder where they got that for Episode 9. But it's little animated Lego shorts, and C3PO tells stories. And it's, traditional Lego fashion, tons of fun, hilarity ensues, or whatever. But it's actually a little mini story that takes place of C3PO going on an adventure to save R2D2 because he gets kidnapped by someone who steals
Yeah,
Admiral Akbar's ship, which Admiral Akbar's like out there polishing and stuff. It's
yeah,
like Lego hilarity, so it's definitely weird.
but they're funny.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. It's definitely like that first episode particularly is fantastic. I would definitely recommend everyone watch that
Yeah,
who has Disney Plus. But I mean, between 6 and 7 is definitely an option for sure because we don't really know what's happening. I mean, we know Luke
right.
doesn't. Luke is out doing like looking around for stuff. Leia's trying to make a government exist, things like that. But beyond that, like it's pretty still sparse information despite the texts that have come out about it.
Yeah, and so what I'm hearing, just gauging from both of us, is we hope, kind of our hopes for this, that it lets us, whatever time period it's in, that it lets us see a little bit more into the larger what's going on in the galaxy
World
and
building is what
everything.
we both hope out of
Yeah,
this.
yeah. The one last thing I want to mention before we move on, is that it does say that Lucas Animation will be teaming up with the visual effects team, Industrial Light and Magic. So you might get some really pretty animation out of this. That could be
Right.
a highlight.
That was something I have like bolded on my my screen is like that concept where it's
Yeah,
like it's not just the animation studios which we typically see with like Rebels, Clone Wars, etc. It's like that's the animation project and the visual effects ILM is usually for
yeah.
their films. So like this could be a really different type of animation. I was
Could
thinking
be
of
like,
like
let's just show off and show what we can do kind of thing, which would be really cool.
which would be cool. I know we've talked a lot about how some in the last 10 years for the most part like it seemed like Star Wars hasn't been showing off as much as they should be
They could,
with
yeah, for sure.
their capabilities. Star Wars has always been the cutting edge of everything. So I do think that if they were just like, hey, look at this animation, that would be really cool to see. Um, I don't know. I was thinking of the Tom and Jerry announcement where
Yeah,
they like kind of put it into that world. Something along those lines could be an option, like really over the top. ILM builds like a whole world and then, animated characters or something. I have no idea. It'll be interesting to see for sure though. But
Yeah, I think that's
the answer
it
is
for
we
a
have
droid
no
story.
idea, but that's what we think. That's what we think for a
Yeah,
droid story.